The world of entertainment has many spheres, so it is no surprise that there is some crossover between the different types. The age of the circus freak saw many people turned into living spectacles, some by choice, others by exploitation. From giants who towered above crowds to tiny figures who fit inside a trunk, here are the 15 circus freaks that make you question reality. Number 15. The White Giantess of Massachusetts. Harriet Big Hattie. Bowen was born around 1840 in Fairhaven on Buzzards Bay near New Bedford. At her peak, she weighed 783 pounds, earning the title the White Giantess of Massachusetts. Why white was included in her billing remains unclear, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Hattie performed with Barnum and Bailey Circus, Buffalo Bills, and Pawnee Bill's Wild West shows, along with dime museums from the Bowery to St. Louis. She became a familiar face across America, part fascination, part wonder. Despite cruel marketing, Hattie carried herself with dignity and grace. Even when her image was printed on posters, she never lost her humanity. Photographed just months before her death in 1890, still in costume, she stood proud in a world that sold her difference. Hattie's story sits at the heart of American show culture, where human lives became attractions, yet her warmth still outshines the spectacle. Number 14. The Murray Midgets. The Murray brothers, John, Joseph, and James, remain among the most mysterious performers of the sideshow era. Born in the 1860s, they were billed as triplets despite clear differences in height, a tale likely crafted to draw more crowds. The smallest stood 37 inches tall, the tallest 42. Their mother managed them, traveling across the country to secure their livelihood. By the 1880s, they had joined Barnum's Circus, later appearing in dime museums that filled America's industrial cities. Almost nothing personal remains, no diaries, interviews, or confirmed photos beyond advertisements. Still, their act reflects an age when physical differences became marketable entertainment. Audiences came for novelty. The Murrays gave them charisma and charm. Behind the curtain, though, they were sons. 3 small men trying to carve a life in a world that measured worth by appearance. Their mother's fierce protection and their quiet endurance made their story more human than any poster could ever show. Number 13. The Danish Strongman. Rasmus Nielsen earned fame as the Danish Strongman, a performer who turned pain into spectacle. Tattooed from scalp to ankle, he pierced his nipples, nose, and tongue, using them to lift impossible weights. He could hoist a blacksmith's anvil, nearly 250 pounds, by chains attached to his nipple rings alone. As he strained, he'd unleash a guttural scream he described as transcending pain, though audiences simply saw a man defying reason. Nielsen performed with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey and Ripley's Believe It or Not, where he was also known as the Scandinavian Strongman and the Tattooed Waterman. In an era long before extreme sports or performance art, Nielsen blurred the line between endurance and madness. He didn't just perform feats of super strength, he lived them, testing his limits before roaring crowds. Every lift was a protest against fragility, every scar a story written in blood and iron. Number 12. Princess Nellie and Major Stanley Jober. Major Stanley Jober stood between 36 and 46 inches tall, depending on the source. His wife, Nellie Frances Way, billed as Princess Nellie, stood just 30 inches and played the violin beautifully. Together, they became one of the most beloved acts in the circus circuit. They toured with the Otis Smith Circus and the mighty Doris Colonel Francis Ferrari show, performing across America in a custom-built truck that doubled as their home. During the Depression, they retired to Waterford, Connecticut, living in a tiny 10 by 30-foot house crafted for them. Unlike many sideshow couples, they didn't lean on shock or pity. Their act was tender, musical, and filled with humor. They presented themselves as artists, not curiosities. Audiences saw two people whose love and talent outshone their size. Their story feels quieter than most. Less about the spectacle, more about devotion and the simple dignity of sharing a stage and a good life. Number 11. Mechanical men. In the early 1900s, nothing drew attention faster than someone pretending to be a machine. Among many, one performer, known only as No Name, mastered the illusion. Dressed in a crisp suit, he moved with mechanical precision, each motion rigid, each blink timed like clockwork. His face stayed eerily expressionless as wires dangled from his sleeves, while a woman operator pretended to control him. His manager even offered a $100 prize to any woman who could make him smile. During a Washington, D.C. war savings event, the automaton collapsed dramatically down the Treasury steps without injury, convincing some he wasn't human at all. The press called him It, marveling that the device survived the fall. In truth, it was pure performance, an artist hidden inside the illusion. But the commitment, control, and uncanny realism turned a simple act into something unforgettable. He blurred the line between flesh and machine, leaving audiences unsure which one they'd just applauded. Number 10. Gargantua. People said you could feel the ground shift when Gargantua moved. He wasn't a performer in sequins or costume. He was the storm that kept the circus alive. Billed as the world's most terrifying living creature, he single-handedly saved Ringling Brothers from collapse in 1938. Born in the wild and once called Buddy, he was renamed after Rabelais' fictional giant, and the name stuck like prophecy. His keepers spun stories that he hated people, feeding the myth with posters of him snarling behind glass. Crowds believed every word. Even his arranged marriage to Mrs. Gargantua was a trick for ticket sales. He barely noticed her. He never danced or obeyed a cue. He didn't need to. His presence was the act. Behind those steel bars lived something ancient and misunderstood. The circus painted him as rage, but inside that cage was just another captive soul, sold to save a show that could never match his power. Number 9. A bodybuilder romance. They met through strength, real sweat and bone strength. Miriam Kate Williams, known to the world as Vulcana, was already the kind of woman who could stop runaway horses before most girls finished school. When she met William Hedley Roberts, a married gym owner, sparks flew and rules were shattered. He left his family, and together they became Atlas and Vulcana, performing in London's music halls by 1892. She was the star, no matter what the posters claimed. Vulcana lifted wagons, rescued children from drowning, and pulled horses from a burning stable, her arms marked by scars she never hid. While Atlas relied on show tricks, Vulcana earned real medals for genuine feats. They toured the world, raised 6 children, and built a life from muscle and defiance. When she died in 1946, she wasn't remembered as a scandal, but as a force. Vulcana proved that strength could be both fierce and beautifully human. Number 8. Jacob Nacken. People who met Jacob Nacken often looked up and kept looking. He was born in Dusseldorf in 1906 and reached 7 feet 3 inches. But he didn't make bold claims. He carried it with quiet humility. Before war darkened Europe, he performed under circus tents, gentle with kids, polite with strangers. When drafted into the Wehrmacht, he didn't belong there. In 1944, near Calais, he surrendered to a British corporal just 5 feet 3. The photo of them, towering giant beside small soldier, captured the world's imagination. Jacob wasn't a symbol of might or terror. He was just a man tired of fighting. After the war, he moved to America, performed again, and later worked as a department store Santa, his huge hands holding tiny ones with care. "He was never a monster," said a friend, "just a giant with a kind heart." In a world obsessed with extremes, Jacob Nacken stayed gentle. the rare kind of strength that doesn't need to roar. Number 7. The Sacred Hairy Family of Burma. Now this is just super unsettling and inhumane. They weren't monsters. They were a family. Covered head to toe in thick hair from a rare genetic condition, they carried their difference with grace. It began with She Maong, born in 1796 and presented to the king of Ava as a child curiosity. Though used for court amusement, he grew to be calm, intelligent, and respected. His daughter, Mafoon, inherited the same trait, and so did her children, forming what the world called the Sacred Hairy Family of Burma. When war consumed their homeland in 1885, they fled through jungles and fire before reaching England. Scientists described them as articulate and kind, not the wild creatures circus banners claimed. By 1888, Barnum had them touring America, living symbols of mystery and misunderstanding. Then they vanished, their story swallowed by silence. All that remains is a faded photograph and the truth behind the myth. They weren't sacred or savage, just human, enduring the world's gaze together. Does this story touch your heart? Number 6. The Texas Talker. Nikos Briscoe, better known as the Texas Talker, doesn't perform tricks. He performs people. With a cowboy hat tipped low and a voice full of rhythm, he stands at the threshold of the sideshow tent, selling not a ticket, but an experience. "Skip this," he says, and it's like going to Rome and ignoring the Colosseum. He's part historian, part hypnotist, drawing strangers into a forgotten world. To Nikos, the pitch is sacred, the last spark of an art form fading fast. His job isn't just to fill seats, it's to open minds. He tells stories of bearded ladies, sword swallowers, fire eaters, without mockery, just awe. People stop, listen, and find themselves walking in. A performer himself, aka the Pink Velvet Witch, Nikos treats every pitch like preservation. Most people, he says, just need a reason to look closer. In a time where wonder feels extinct, the Texas Talker keeps it breathing, one voice at a time. He was a legend. What do you say? Number 5. Mademoiselle Gabrielle. Now this is just heart-tossing. Mademoiselle Gabrielle was legless from birth, but she walked taller than most who ever looked at her. Born in Basel, Switzerland, she stepped into the spotlight at 16 during the 1900 Paris Exposition. Draped in corsets and jewels, she didn't beg sympathy, she demanded attention. By the time she reached America, she'd become a star at Coney Island's Dreamland, and later with Ringling Bros and Barnum and Bailey, billed as the half-woman. But Gabrielle was no passive exhibit. She knew her worth, managed her own image, and carried herself like royalty in a tent full of gawkers. In 1912, she made history performing at Hammerstein's Victoria Theater, one of vaudeville's most prestigious stages. It was rare air for anyone from the sideshow world. Disputes ended that run, and her trail eventually vanished. But Gabrielle left something behind. Elegance under pressure, power without limbs, and a poise that turned spectacle into art. She didn't just perform, she redefined grace itself. Number 4. The world's largest lady and smallest man. In 1922, America's traveling tents unveiled a living contrast. Nellie Blanche Lane, weighing over 640 pounds, and Clarence Chesterfield Howerton, standing just 2 feet 4 inches tall. Together they became the world's largest lady and smallest man, a pairing that made audiences gasp before they even spoke. Clarence was still a boy then, unaware he'd later star as a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. Nellie towered beside him, commanding the stage with humor and warmth. Their photographs flooded posters, postcards, and tabloids, a deliberate collision of extremes designed to mesmerize. Behind the canvas walls, though, they were co-workers, not caricatures. Nellie's life faded quietly, but Clarence kept performing, building a career that stretched beyond the sideshow. That single image, her immense presence beside his small frame, remains etched in circus lore. It wasn't just about their size, it was about two people who turned difference into livelihood and humanity into a headline. Now let's move to number 3, Ada Briggs. Ada was born in Pulaski and built an empire out of the word fat. By the 1870s, she was already a dime museum headliner, advertised as fat and beautiful. At 5 feet tall and over 520 pounds, Ada didn't hide. She conquered. She earned up to $75 a week, a small fortune for her time, and she demanded every cent with grace. Journalists adored her confidence, describing her as beautiful as she is big. In 1885, she presided over the Fat Lady Convention in Baltimore, a moment that turned her into a symbol of pride and defiance. Unlike many who endured the stares, Ada met them head-on, with wit, poise, and power. Crowds came expecting ridicule. They left impressed. She turned exploitation into command, proving beauty wasn't a number but a presence. Ada didn't just take the stage, she owned it. Her story stands as proof that even under the harshest lights, dignity can shine brighter than spectacle. Number 2, General Might. Francis Joseph Flynn, better known as General Might, stood only 21 inches tall, but his presence filled entire halls. Born in New York in 1864, he toured the world as a child, dressed in ornate uniforms that made his tiny frame seem almost regal. Audiences adored him for his humor and charm, reporters for his wit. "Small in form, grand in spirit," one wrote. His fame peaked in 1884 when he married Millie Edwards, a fellow performer, in a ceremony covered by newspapers from New York to London. They weren't a gimmick. They were genuinely in love, traveling as partners across continents. After years of spectacle, Flynn settled in Australia, tired of the spotlight but still proud of the life it gave him. He died in 1898, just 34 years old. Yet his legacy outgrew his height, an entertainer who carried dignity, humor, and heart wherever he went. General Might may have been very tiny, but his story was pretty enormous. Number 1, Maximo and Bartola. Maximo and Bartola were born in El Salvador with microcephaly, a small head caused by a rare condition. They were real people, but their story wasn't. Promoters reinvented them as Aztec children, claiming they were discovered in an ancient temple, mute and wild. In truth, they were sold by their parents to a showman named Morris, who dressed them in fake Aztec costumes and wove a fantasy for paying crowds. It was 1848, and audiences wanted exotic wonders. The lie worked. Morris published a 48-page pamphlet, Life of the Living Aztec Children, complete with made-up legends to boost ticket sales. Scientists studied them, doctors debated their origin, and newspapers fueled the myth. They toured Europe and America for decades, never escaping the false identity forced on them. When their act ended around 1901, they vanished from record. What's left is the story. Two people trapped between fascination and fiction, remembered more for a hoax than for who they were. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.